Hello and welcome everybody. Today we're going to honor the memories of Abby and Libby by sharing the heartfelt victim impact statements presented by their families during the sentencing of Richard Allen. We're lucky to have those statements available from Lauren and Dr. John at Hidden True Crime. They're a podcast and YouTube channel, so make sure to check them out. Before we get into the victim impact statements, I want to briefly explain what the courtroom was like that day. Only 13 members of the public were allowed in at first, and Lauren was one of them. She ended up sitting in the second row, which was usually reserved for media, and the seats that were saved for Richard Allen's family were empty, and they stayed that way. Nobody showed up. Now, the other side of the courtroom, reserved for Abby and Libby's families, that was completely full. Their parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, all there. You could feel the emotion in the room, and there were also very many police officers. At 8:55 a.m., Richard Allen walked in. He was shackled, wearing an orange jumpsuit and a gray sweatshirt. He carried a Bible and a notebook, and he did not show much, if any, emotion. Some people thought that the Bible was just for show. Maybe it wasn't, but that's how it seemed to feel for everybody. The judge started right at 9. The first person to speak was Lieutenant Jerry Holman, and he said that Allen's crimes were brutal and he had no remorse. And then the families gave their victim impact statements, and that's what you're about to hear now. So this victim impact statement comes from Mike Patty, and that's Libby's grandfather. First letter is from Mike is addressed to the Honorable Judge Frangold. He says, "We appreciate your firm, fair guidance and direction. Your ability to thwart off all the unnecessary noise and acts that were deployed during this process. Thank you for standing firm and staying focused on what needed to be done. I request you provide the maximum sentence allowed by our justice system, and whatever that sentence is, would also have no possibility of parole. There is no parole available to our girls. For this I will never forget." This next page is addressed to the jury from Mike. He says, "We appreciate your time spent here and being away from your families. You've had to see and hear things in our society that should not be so, but unfortunately, due to the acts of this convict, this is what needed to be done. Being able to absorb and look at things objectively through an unfiltered lens and delivering the verdict, thank you. For this I will not forget." Then the next letter is addressed to the prosecution. Mike says, "We appreciate your willingness to stay on task, putting in numerous hours, putting this case above many of your personal needs. The result speaks for itself, but wanted to share our deepest gratitude. For this I will never forget." He addresses the next letter to the investigation team. He says, "We appreciate your determination and grit to stay on this for so many years. I have observed from outside while you investigated so many tips that many have no idea about, all to deliver proof and to get to the bottom of this case. Never once did I hear, 'We are out of options.' There was always a full court press to bring justice in this case, and for this I will never forget." And he addresses this letter to the family. "I am so blessed to have such a loving and welcoming family. I only wish I could have prevented any of this from happening, and wish I could have protected everyone from having to go through this. Our family is strong, and we will march forward and continue to grow. For this I am grateful." And he writes this letter to the defense. "I understand the role you needed to play, but I cannot connect the ways of our legal system to allow so many things to interfere with the truth and the facts to simply be brought before a jury. I cannot imagine our forefathers ever envisioned the attempts to suppress and divert the facts would ever be part of our justice system. One should reflect and review their position to support truth, justice, and the American way. Your inept ability to protect some of the most personal facts in this case, the crime scene photos, and making statements that you really didn't care that were out there, my family will forever have to explain how these are available for people to search. What do I say to my kids, grandchildren, great-grandchildren? What will you tell your grandkids? I hope you tell them the truth. I surely will. For this I will never forget. And then he addresses this letter simply as the convict. I will never understand how you could have conducted such an atrocity. You killed my granddaughter nearly 8 years ago and have only thought of yourself. Your attempts of self-preservation are a result of how you really are. Once you committed this crime, you could have been a man, stood up and taken accountability, but you didn't. At any time during these proceedings, you could have stood up and taken responsibility, but you didn't. And were only concerned about yourself and tried to get away with murder. Actions always speak louder than words. By being so selfish, you continued to punish and hurt my family. For this I will never forget. Your act of murder has tested my faith. I am still not ready to provide forgiveness. When I am able, it will be for my own faith and conscience, not yours. For this I will never forget. I have never felt such hatred and should not be this way towards another human being. What you have done has impacted so many people's lives. We will heal with the help of our pastor. I'm lucky to have a great family and will enjoy the rest of my life helping and watching all of them grow, from our kids to our great-grandchildren. This is something you will not get to take away, and you will never get to experience such joy and love as what my family has. And lastly, I hope the rest of your days are spent in as much fear as the girls had to experience in the last part of their lives. And I hope those moments haunt you the rest of your days. You deserve no better. Now is the time to stand up and take accountability. Put a stop to any future attempts to appeal so we can let Libby rest in peace. And that ended Mike's statement. This next statement is from the grandmother of Libby, Becky Patty. To Honorable Judge Gohl, where does one start? How does one explain the effect of how one choice a person makes has an entire family for generations to come? I don't think one can really explain and do it justice. There are not enough words in our language that begins to paint the picture of the grief that we live in each and every day. Richard Allen was an adult, and he should be held accountable for the choices that he made on February 13th, 2017. He chose not to go to lunch with his mom and sister. Instead, he chose to drink beer for liquid courage. He chose to lay in wait for his victims, to order them down the hill. He had the opportunity to let Libby and Abby go when that white van drove by, but he chose not to do so. Instead, he chose to take them across the creek where he viciously murdered them, making sure that they were dead before he went home and continued his life. Richard Allen viciously and heartlessly stole the choice to live from Abby and Libby that day. He was a coward and didn't want to be held accountable for his heinous choices and actions, so he just killed them and went home. I guess in his eyes, he was nice enough to make sure that they were dead before leaving so they wouldn't suffer. A few days later, he developed photos for the family that would be used at Libby's funeral. He stood there watching the family members as they struggled to keep their composure, while dealing with the insurmountable grief and preparing for the that lay ahead. Not blinking an eye, with no remorse. I wonder what he was thinking. Our lives turned upside down that day, never to be the same again. Abby and Libby, two young teens with their entire futures ahead of them. They never got the opportunity to make their marks on the world. He stole that from them. Libby never got to go to prom, graduate, go on dates, go to college, get married, or start a family. She never got to be the best aunt ever. He robbed us all. The world was robbed of what could have been. All the while, he went on living his life. He was able to walk his daughter down the aisle and give her away at her wedding. I wonder, did he think of the girls at all while he was walking her down the aisle? Our families will never get the privilege of watching Libby or Abby walk down that aisle. He took that from us. The impact of Richard Allen's choices made that day haunted our families for almost 8 years and continues even now. Because of choices he made and the subsequent arrest, he was appointed 2 lawyers to defend him. Those lawyers have done nothing but twist the knife around and around in our wounds that Richard caused that day. Because of one lawyer's sloppiness, sealed crime scene photos of Libby's naked and mutilated body were left unattended, allowing images to be taken and spread around to people on the internet as recent as this week. These crime scene photos were still being shared on the internet for no good reason or entertainment by many. Sharing those photos changed nothing. It doesn't solve the crime, it doesn't bring the girls back. So now, because of Richard Allen's choices that day and his lawyer's sloppiness, the impact has now become generational for us. One day when Libby's nieces or nephews decide they want to learn more about their Aunt Libby, we may be faced with those horrible crime scene photos that we were so carelessly taking care of. I wonder if his lawyer would have been so careless with those photos, if they were the photos of one of his children. Would he still have felt no accountability because he was snookered? And then you have the other lawyer who sat in judge's chambers stating that he really didn't care that the photos had been leaked. I wonder if he would have been so callous and uncaring if those photos of the child's naked and mutilated bodies being shared was his own. Would he still not care? No. These professionals are allowed to claim no accountability for their actions and move on to the next case, disrespecting and devaluing the next victim and their families. Meanwhile, our families are left picking up the pieces because of their choices and actions. In the end, all of these choices made by the defense team, the fallout that our families now have to live with, falls directly on the head of Richard Allen because of the choices he made on February 13th, 2017. I could go on and on about what we lost that day, but it would change nothing. The deafening silence in my house, the milestones missed, the grandbabies never to sit on our laps, the impact Libby and Abby would have had on so many lives. Talking about it won't bring them back to us. Nothing in this world can change the outcome of that horrific day, no matter how hard we wish or pray them back. They are gone forever. Only Richard Allen making a different choice that day could have changed it. Their lives were in the balance. He chose to kill Abby and Libby. Their lives mattered. He is the one responsible for all of this. All I can hope for now is that Richard Allen will be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law for what he did that day. His sentence needs to reflect not only murdering of the girls, but also serving time for each day of life that those girls still had in front of them, for every feat they may have accomplished. I feel that he should serve 1 day behind bars for each future day he robbed from those girls. I hope he is not held in a single occupancy cell since his attorneys feels it would be detrimental to his health. I hope he is ordered to reside in general population so he can have the human interaction that he so craves and needs. Last of all, I hope he lives each day and the rest of his life living with the same fear that he bestowed on Abby and Libby the last hour of their lives. I hope the choices he made on February 13th, 2017 come back to haunt him, giving him no peace. I realize I should not feel this way, but I can't stop these feelings. I hope God can see my heart and can forgive me. I hope Richard Allen's new relationship with God will finally compel him to do the right thing and to stop this nightmare from continuing any longer. Not only for our families, but his as well. He needs to do what he knows God would want him to do. I hope he finally gives the girls the respect they deserve. Give them back the dignity that he so callously took from them. Richard Allen took so much from our families and the world that day. But what he will never take from us is the memories that we have of Libby and Abby. We will forever keep them alive, even if it can only be in our hearts. I live every day with the burden of the choice I made that fateful day. I can never change the results of my choice of letting the girls go to the trails, and I take responsibility for that. What about you, Richard Allen? Will you ever own up and take responsibility for the choices that you made that day? Only you can stop this nightmare for all of the families. You can make that choice. And we also have a letter from Josh Lank, which is Libby's cousin. He says, I would like to start off by thanking the prosecution team and all the law enforcement who was involved in this case for the countless hours of your guys' time that was dedicated to this case, and I can't thank each of you enough. You can tell from the beginning that this case was very, very important to them, and they did everything that they could to find justice for those two beautiful girls. I would also like to thank our little community. You guys have been so kind to our family with the love and the support you have shown us, from painting the town teal and purple to feeding us every day throughout the trial. I seriously can't thank you guys enough. Our town may be little, but this goes to show that in the time of need, our community pulls together. Libby was my first cousin, but the bond we had together was a brother and sister bond that nobody could break. When we were younger, we were together almost every day. It was always Kelsey, Libby, my brother, and I. We would ride the bus to my grandma's after school, and you would never know what kind of trouble we'd get into. Libby was one of a kind. She would give the shirt off her back to someone she thought needed it more than her. She was always trying to find ways to help people and make things easier on everyone. She truly was going to do great things in life. I will forever remember Libby by the amazing memories we made, and not how Richard Allen left them on February 13th, 2017. He took away so much away from those girls. They had amazing lives ahead of them. The pain he has put both of our families through could never be forgiven or forgotten. The things we had to see, we will never be able to unsee, all because of him. This man has made my life and my family's life a living hell for the past 8 years. Now it's time for his life to be a living hell. 23 hours a day, no communication, isolation from everyone. That is what the man's life is going to be like until he dies. Richard Allen took two amazing little girls with so much life ahead of them from my family and from the Williams family way too soon. And for his action, I hope and pray that he lives the rest of his life thinking about the mistakes he made that day. I would like to leave you with this. God doesn't have a place for sick, twisted-minded individuals like Richard Allen. The devil has a special place in hell for him, and I hope the prison community can get him there quicker than the sentencing. He is a dead man walking. Judge Gohl, I ask that you take in consideration the max sentencing with no parole. There should be no way that this man has a chance to get out of prison and being able to have the ability to do what he did again. Granting him no parole would solidify that. So, what you just heard came straight from the hearts of Abby's and Libby's families. Well, Libby's families. Their words are full of pain, but also strength, and a strength that they never should have had to find. There's still people out there calling Richard Allen a victim. But let's be clear, he is not the victim. Abby and Libby were the victims. Their families are the victims. The community is the victim. Allen made a choice, and that choice destroyed lives. Don't forget who this is really about. Thanks for watching, and please keep standing with the families.